I wouldn't recommend this to anyone, but I have orchestra rep in a few hours, and we're looking at the Scherzo from Beethoven 3. I haven't practiced it yet. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but we all need to practice more efficiently. So let's see what we can get done in a few hours. This video isn't meant to brag or anything. I don't know how far I'm going to get before class, but I just want to show the ways that we can practice efficiently when we don't have a lot of time, even if it's not because we didn't drop the ball, even if it's just because we want to learn something faster. We can always practice more efficiently, and there are ways that we can do that. My teacher gives us the excerpts before each class. She uploads them about a week before. And this one has some fingerings and bowings in it, so at least I'm not starting from completely scratch. I'm sure I would be able to, but at least I have a starting place. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to listen to it. I actually listened to it last night, but I really need to sit down with the score and actually, listen to it. So I just finished my first listen, and there are a few things that I picked up on. A lot of this kind of happens within each position, so I think there's a lot of second position because it's E flat, and I found that E flat major and C minor, those two key signatures, work pretty well in second position. So when we listen, we should identify a few different things. So what I found from this recording was a lot of staccato, so it's really the same bow stroke the whole way through this. I'm not going to really have to change up my bow stroke, so once I get the bow stroke down, it'll apply basically to the whole excerpt. A lot of this is pianissimo, so just working on that with the sforzandos, I'll have to incorporate this in. Another thing to notice is how your part works with the other parts. So when we play orchestra excerpts, it's really easy to just get in the mindset of this is my part, this is, the committee wants to hear my part. But when you think of it in context with the rest of the orchestra, the part comes alive so much more. So when I hear someone playing an orchestra excerpt, it's usually pretty easy to tell if they're just thinking about their part or if they're thinking about the orchestra as a whole, because it makes a huge difference. So I found that the majority of this excerpt kind of goes with the rest of the orchestra. So I have I don't know if it's quite the main theme or the melody, but I have kind of the main idea. But then at around measure 143, the viola line kind of becomes a bass line. So just kind of switching the mentalities will really help bring this excerpt alive, even without a lot of practice. Time to sight read. Okay, so the first read-through wasn't too bad. I don't know how I'm going to get it up to tempo in the next few hours, but it's straightforward. It's, it's not like a huge dramatic solo or anything. It's Beethoven. So let's work on it. So one section I know I need to focus on is right after the first repeat sign. There are a lot of accidentals, so I'm going to go through it really slowly, really legato, and just work on tuning those notes. think the trickiest part for this is preparing and anticipating for those shifts, because I'm just not used to it yet. So I'm just going to be really repetitive and really like drive this in. Ah! So far I've just focused on the beginning to measure 72. So now I'm going to work forward. I'm just doing it in chunks, not too big so that it's too overwhelming, but not too small that I'm focusing on too many details. I would normally do slightly smaller sections when I have more practice time, but in an effort to just get this all done in one day, I'm doing slightly bigger chunks than I might usually. I think that was a little too fast because I messed up one of the bowings. I corrected it after, but I think I need to slow down a little bit more so my brain can process it and learn it correctly rather than incorrectly. So always go slower than you think you might need to, because it will definitely help your brain. Definitely improving. I think repetition and starting slow and slowly working up closer to tempo is really the main focus for anything like this, especially when you don't have a lot of time. All right, moving on, I'm going to start looking at 121 to the end now. So this is another one of those spots similar to that one section towards the beginning where there are a lot of accidentals, and I know I need to work on this section slowly. So this is the second line to the end. So I'm thinking a lot about the intervals in between each note and also the space between each finger. Like, will it be a half step away, a whole step away, even if they're on different strings? And thinking in that way will help me get there faster. Just knowing, it helps me map out where my fingers need to go on the fingerboard. Let's add in some dynamics. I'm not going to do the bow stroke yet. I'm just going to add those dynamics in there and really still focusing on where my left-hand fingers are going. So when I'm practicing slowly like this, I don't want to use too much bow or be in a different section of the bow than I will when I'm playing it up to tempo with everything put in. So even though I'm playing legato, I'm playing basically in this part of the bow, like the lower half, lower third. When it's piano, I'm using less bow, and when it gets bigger, I'm using a little more bow. Now let's add in the staccato. I've practiced to the end of this now. I'm going to try putting it together and just see how it sounds. See where those treble spots are. It's probably not up to tempo yet, but I will do it all. I'm going to try to do it all in a consistent tempo. Let's just see what the tempo is first. It says dotted half note is 116. It's kind of like scratched out. So I'm going to slow this down a little bit. Let's do 110. That sounds more like the recording that I listened to. And I listened to a recording by Simon Cradle, so I think that's pretty reputable. Okay. I'm not going to do it that fast, but just so that I have an idea of the goal. So what I noticed from that little run through is that I really need to practice the transitions between shifts, because it's very easy for me to slow down and stop right before those shifts, because I'm not really used to them yet, and I'm thinking, my brain is kind of scattered and going everywhere. So I'm going to isolate those shifts, and if there's something else, I forgot it. Oh, yeah, okay. So in this last section, there are a lot of rests that last for 1 measure and 2 beats, and I wasn't really counting those. So first I'm going to isolate those shifts. Be natural. So this little stretch of measures is hard because there are 2 shifts and 3 measures. So I'm really gonna isolate this and repeat it over and over again. Definitely easier to handle now. I've kind of mapped out where each shift is, so my brain goes, okay, shift here, shift there, and it's more organized in my head. I think repetition kind of organizes our mind so that it's just simpler, and what I look for a lot in music are patterns. So I teach this to my students too, just finding the patterns, finding what's similar, what's different. If you know that the same thing happens 3 times in a piece, you practice it once, and then if it's exactly the same, then you've practiced those 3 sections basically. And oh, this section is just like the first section. I've got this. It's not like a new thing. Sometimes you just have to tell your brain these things. See, I already forgot to count those rests. So, perfect segue into those rests. So what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draw lines on the downbeats so that I think ba-dum, bum-bum. I can kind of think about the downbeats rather than, oh, what beat am I on, and just kind of getting lost, because I know that I personally have a tendency to do that. I don't know about you, but that's just how I am. So, you don't have to mark something in your music if it's something that everyone else struggles with, but you don't. But if you struggle with it and other people don't, write it in your music. We're all different, and so we all have different practicing needs. And I'm going to write bowing in there. I find that when I don't have bowings written in, my brain will kind of flip-flop, like, oh, should I play this down bow, should I play this up bow? And that confusion in my brain slows me down and just distracts me. So just writing in a bowing and doing that will help me play everything in tempo and will narrow down that confusion. And if I don't like it, then I'll change it and try it the other way. But just writing something in helps me tremendously when I'm doing something like this. Okay, so I know I held some of those measures to different lengths, and I felt like I got it right towards the end, so I'm just going to keep doing that section with the rests over and over again so that I really learn how long those rests are. Alright, I was happy with that. I'm going to take a short break because if I do too much in one session, it's just going to wear me out, and I want to make sure that when I come back to it, especially in preparation for coming back to it during class, I want to make sure that when I come back to it, I'm still able to do it. So taking a break, just a few minutes of a break, will help me practice coming back to it after being away from it. Okay, it's been about 2 minutes since I left you. I would normally take a little bit of a longer break, but I have a rehearsal I need to get to, so I'm trying to just knock this out as fast as I can. So I'm just gonna run through it and I'm gonna see what happens. I'm also going to take a few seconds to just look it over, remember what I'm dealing with, get into the right mindset. Overall, I was pretty happy with that. Something I didn't like was in the last line when I went to fortissimo, it was kind of sloppy, so I want to clean that up. But I think the main thing I want to do is listen to a recording again, just listen to more details, see what I can find, just listen for the instrumentation of it too, so that I can get an even better idea of how my part fits in with everyone else, and like just different little nuances that will really help pull this excerpt together. So I think the difficult thing about cleaning up this last line are all the string crossings. So there's, so we're going from G to D, and then G to A, and then back to G, D, G, D. I'm just going to do this on open strings. Now I'm going to try doing it a little louder. So I'm going to listen to this again, see what I pick up on, and then run through it maybe a few more times, and then I need to get to my rehearsal. Alright, so I learned two main things from that listen. The first thing that I learned are that those accents in measure 49 and 53 are more vibrato accents than like loud bow accents. It was a lot lighter and not delicate, but more delicate than I'm doing. So I'm going to lighten up a little bit on those, just accent them with vibrato rather than with my bow. And then the other thing that I learned was I'm totally forgetting about those quarter rests before the trills in measure 118 and right before B. Alright, so I'm gonna run through this one more time and then I'll be done for now. Alright, I'm happy with that. That was about an hour's worth of practice. So the takeaways from this are, keep your focus. Focus is the most important thing, and if you need to take frequent short breaks to keep your focus, that is totally fine and totally honorable, and I would have done that if I had had more time and I didn't have a rehearsal to get to. So focus is the key. Really paying attention to the key signature right away. This was in E flat major, and I like E flat major, so that aspect was easy for me, so I didn't really talk about it. Another thing is just the bowing and the style of it. This is basically all staccato the whole way through. So I was able to keep the bowing consistent, which helped a lot. If it was a mix of staccato and legato, I think it would have been a lot harder. Another thing are the dynamics. It's pianissimo most of the way through with some sforzandos and accents and the fortissimo at the end. So it's a lot of the same thing, but then we have big moments where it changes, and I was able to grasp onto those really quickly. It's Beethoven, it's like a cool melody, so it wasn't like a super weird atonal thing. It was Beethoven. This practice day is not over yet. You're gonna follow me through my warm-up right before class, and I'm gonna show you how I play in class, and then I'm sure I will talk and summarize some more after class. So I'll see you in about an hour. Okay, so it's been a little over an hour since I last played this excerpt, so I'm just gonna run through it. My class starts in 10 minutes, so I'm just gonna run through it and see how it goes. I thought that was a pretty good run through, but I think I need to just up the tempo a little more and become more familiar with it, which just takes more time, and I can't do that in a day. But I'm going to try it just a little bit faster, and now that I've kind of come back to it once, it should be a little bit easier this time through. I felt my whole arm move. So it's the evening now. I had a pretty long afternoon and evening after my class, but it was good. It was kind of a guided lesson on the excerpt, so she took us through each little section and told us all about the bow stroke and the tempo and just little nuances, things that we should be aware of. So it was very helpful. I think the amount of preparation I did was good for the class, but it would have been much better if it had been spread out over a few days and shorter practice sessions rather than one big chunk all right before the class. So working in shorter, more frequent practice sessions will help your brain retain the information better, and the repetition and breaks allow your brain to really process the information. So I probably would have gotten a bit farther with this excerpt if I had started it over the weekend. Today's Monday, so if I had worked on it each day over the weekend, just in shorter, like 15-minute, 20-minute chunks, and then come to it today, it would have been a little further along. But I think that things like these can be good learning experiences for us, because you never know when you might get music right before a rehearsal or the day of the rehearsal, and you only have that much time to get it ready. Or if you're called for a gig right before it happens, you know, you might only have a day or so to learn all the music. We need to be prepared for these situations, and even though, you know, we should be practicing frequently and prioritizing the right music so that we don't run into these situations, it's an important tool that we need to have. You know, that's just it. So I hope this video did not give you the wrong idea. Practicing is very important, and you should prioritize your music so that you don't run into situations like this. But these situations do happen to all of us, and we need to be prepared for them, and it's always good to know how to practice more efficiently. Even if you don't foresee yourself getting into a situation where you might get the music the day of, it's always better for us to practice more efficiently, because then we're spending less time practicing and more time doing whatever you want or working on other music that you want to play. So, you know, it's just always a good idea to see what you can do in a short amount of time. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a like. If you have any suggestions or any stories about a time you had to learn a piece really fast, please leave it down below. I'd love to read it, and I'd love to have a conversation with you. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you always know when I upload. Happy practicing!